When dealing with a falsehood, you're faced with two options. You can accept it or you can reject it. The basis upon which we take one of these actions is a product of our critical thinking capabilities and a desire to know what is true instead of confirming our bias. A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. On Brainstorm, we choose the hard truths over the comforting lies. Reason, compassion, skepticism. This is the Brainstorm Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the Brainstorm Rec Table, the Brainstorm production where we spend some time discussing one topic or many, depending on how the way the conversation flows. This is an open brainstorming session.
Yes.
Is that a pun? I'm not sure.
No, I'm not a pun person, so
No.
I'm not.
I love how you hate puns. It's so much fun to make them.
I don't quite believe that you're a parent and you have kids.
I refuse to pun.
No, he doesn't do dad jokes.
I don't.
It means you're not really a dad, Corey. Doesn't matter what you do for your kids. You're not really a real dad.
The no true dad fallacy.
Do you even grill, Corey?
I do grill.
And he mows lawns.
And I mow lawns.
So he's kind of dad.
I'm Corey. And I'm still joined by Renee.
Hello.
Brandon.
Hello.
Lisa.
Rectums are amazing.
The always amazing Dave.
I do tell dad jokes.
Do you? I never heard you tell a dad joke,
Well,
Dave.
you never see me around my kid very often.
No, but dad jokes, you never turn it off, you know. My dad is corny all the time. I guess I'm always around him anyways.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem when you talk about your dad and their
Yeah,
dad.
my dad's around me. He's corny all the time. Wait, I am his child.
Yeah, that's right. We are in Roman Empire Studios in Regina, Saskatchewan, and today is May 25th, 2018. So, I guess I wanted to talk about this very serious subject that we have many links to for reading. But first, I wanted to kind of see how things were going, talk to people in the room on a just conversational level. I did, and I was going to do an everyday skepticism segment at one point because I ran into somebody at the grocery store who gave me a bit of information about black licorice.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Apparently, black licorice leads to high blood pressure because of the niacin. I did look it up. Niacin has actually been something that's been studied in lowering blood pressure. So
there you go.
So quite the opposite
It depends on how you feel about black licorice. Because it's one of those things, you either like it or you don't.
Yeah.
Fucking black licorice. Well, there's your blood pressure spiking.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Disgusting thing. So, you know.
Yeah. So that was one of my everyday skepticism. Like, I didn't argue with the cashier at the grocery store, but I was quite skeptical of what she was saying.
Sometimes it's just not worth arguing with people.
Yeah.
It's just not, whatever.
Well, not yeah.
Sure,
It's kind of
whatever.
you walk away from that conversation. You're both just kind of where you started.
Yeah.
You haven't passed anything on. They haven't gained anything.
Although me and Stephanie did kind of like look at each other. I don't think that's right.
It's always a little bit weird to get nutritional advice
From the cashier.
Well, especially when they're commenting on the shit you're buying.
Right. Yeah. I was buying Orange Crush flavored licorice, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Or Twizzlers.
I don't know. People, they just see something, makes them think of the thing, and then they're like, they say shit because
Yeah.
they're just, that's their job. And they're there all day and fuck it, like whatever.
I had to pick up stuff for work one day. We just ran out. It happens, and we're work right by Walmart, right? And so I was there and I was picking stuff up, and I had like 3 or 4 cases of mushrooms. Some woman's like, "Oh, you must really like mushrooms," and I was just kind of like, I just kind of looked at her and went, I have a project. And then, but in my head, I was thinking,
I have a project?
yeah, it was the first thing that came to
She
my
probably
mind.
thought you were going to build a house out of mushrooms or
It was the
something.
first thing that came to my mind. The second thing that came to my mind is like, yes, I do like mushrooms, but not as much as I like people staying the fuck out of my business. But I didn't say that.
Do you want points for that? Like, good job.
Yeah, wow.
I have to share a sample from Scottish Twitter. Because it's apparently Scottish Twitter is just so different from what you normally expect. It's like,
You think, fuck off?
no, not quite like that.
What's Scottish Twitter? Sorry.
It's Twitter for Scottish people.
Is that like a separate website or is it just
No, it's still
Scottish
Twitter.
people who are on Twitter?
Yes.
Okay.
It's
But
the Scottish online community.
But it's so
Okay, I'm following.
but it's so culturally distinct that it's gets
it
its own
really,
separate-
though?
Well, when they sample from their lives with quotes, apparently, like they don't really discuss topics like Twitter does. But anyway, the idea is
Okay.
like, it's like when the nan at the counter asks me about, it's like, are you sure there are nuts in these? Are you allergic? It's like, no, I'm trying to commit suicide by donut. Give me the donut. It's like, sure, why not?
I have something I want to talk about before the serious topic.
Okay.
I received an email on
An email?
May 21st,
2018?
2018.
A real email?
It's from Fitbit. Just got my Fitbit.
This is our weekly
just
Fitbit
over 2
segment.
weeks ago. I just want to say,
Fitbit segment.
last week's standings, me, 86,960 steps. Corey, 72,681. Wah, wah, wah. Do we have a sound for that, Dave? I don't know.
I don't,
Maybe it's a
but-
bitch slap sound because I totally outstepped Corey by a lot.
That sounds like it sounds work related, right? Because Corey's driving a truck all the time, and
Last
Where's your
week,
steps, dude?
last week I was on night, so
Are you going to beat my ass this week?
and I'm doing 2 extra days of work this week. So
Don't come up with excuses, Corey. Just get your steps in.
yeah,
They have no impact at all on your health, but hey, no.
well, not no impact, but
maybe some.
You know, Fitbit could sell this information to like actual researchers to like check out correlations with
Oh,
health
they
and-
probably have.
No, companies, yes.
Yeah.
Marketers, yes, but
Have you read the entire end user license agreement?
no. There's a terrible South Park episode about that. Don't ever watch
that
it.
is the greatest episode.
No, it's the worst
no, it's-
episode.
it's
No,
the
it's
best.
the worst.
Please watch it.
No. Only if you like human centipedes.
Yes, actually, it is pretty bad.
It's so.
there
I think
are
I
worse. There
never
are
watched
worse.
another episode of South Park after I saw that. I was like, I think I'm done.
There are actually worse ones than that, though.
I believe you, but
surprisingly.
I just found that one. Anyways, so horrible things.
Horrible things. So there was a school shooting in Santa Fe. Or excuse me. Oh. And yeah. And I guess it seems like this happens quite often now.
But by the time someone listens to this, there'll probably be like 3 more at least.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there was already one today. I just
yeah.
didn't-
See, there you go.
Do you guys remember? I don't even remember what was was it the year 2000, 1999, or when Columbine happened, and everyone was like,
I remember.
everyone's like, holy fuck.
Right.
What is this? This is new. This is awful. How surprising. But, and not like, I mean, now it's just like, oh, another one. Oh, and I mean, I don't, like, it's just, do you remember that? It doesn't seem that long. I guess I was in high school. And I was like looking at my friend Kyle, who
It
like
was
always
20
wore
years
trench
ago.
coats.
It was 20 years
I
ago.
know I'm old, but he always wore trench coats and black eyeliner.
So did
and we
I.
were in
So did
archery
I.
class together, and I was eyeing him out. Like I was like, Kyle is gonna kill me, and then we became best friends. But
See-
just saying,
I was that guy in Weyburn.
you were Kyle.
and they wouldn't leave me alone. Like,
Well, Kyle was white. It was okay.
okay. Well,
Which makes no sense because the guys who shut up Columbine were also
yeah,
white.
they were very white.
I was like constantly monitored, and I was like, they like implemented this security emergency system in our school, like getting ready for a school shooting. It was just like
good.
It was just absurd. Like I was a victim of the kind of the consequences of that shooting.
Racial profiling or
Well, it was
black eyeliner profiling.
It was goth profiling.
Yeah.
Right? It was, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, like, the funny thing is like, I could have told you who the person was who'd maybe come shoot the place up. And then he did. He didn't come shoot the place up, but he brought a shotgun to school and like almost killed somebody.
Jeez.
And meanwhile, they're worried about me for like half a year, like constantly. And I was just like, oh man, that was the worst year of my life. I'll
That's
think
crazy.
just
awful.
because I was wearing a trench coat and I wrote a story that was like kind of a social commentary story and that freaked them out or something. So I don't know.
Right. You
Normally
can't question the status quo, Dave.
No, you can't. No.
Normally the worst year of your life is the first year your kid's alive.
Oh no, that was great. I had a great year.
Fuck you.
That was fantastic.
It's because your nipples weren't bleeding.
That's true.
That does help.
That would definitely ruin things.
No,
yeah.
but you know what was happening in Weyburn? Sorry, I don't want to take over the conversation, but like, so the story I wrote, like I was exposing the fact that at the school assemblies, they used to let people do the most atrocious shit in front of everybody. Like they had this reward called the Beaver card.
Okay.
That they handed out at the assembly, and it was for the girl who screwed the most baseball players. And then they had the puck card
At
for the girl.
a school assembly?
I am not joking. They let this go, and they let.
I don't remember that.
That wasn't.
Well, you
a
guys
thing
were
with-
were gone by then.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was but it was like atrocious. So I wrote a story about that, about this kid who comes to town and gets made fun of in front of the whole school, and kind of like he's already at his wit's end and like loses his mind and you know, shoots a school. I did that. I wrote that before Columbine happened, though, like way before
Right.
Columbine. And then when Columbine happened, they thought about it and they're like, oh my God, maybe it's him. You know, so I was like, I told them it's just social commentary. It's not me. Like I was just talking about a scenario that could happen in this town, you know, based on the way you treat people. And that didn't mean anything to them. So anyway, that's my rant. This is a very personal issue for me because I've experienced some discrimination because of it.
That sucks, Dave.
But
Sorry to hear that.
yeah, whatever. I got through it. I almost went to the media and blew it up, but I didn't. A good friend
I
of
am
mine
both.
talked me
I'm
out
a little
of it.
surprised and a whole lot not surprised.
Oh, Weyburn is just
Yeah.
that town. It's that town.
Yeah.
You know,
That's right.
it's South Park.
It's
South Park doesn't have a KFC buffet, my friends.
Oh, but could you, if Cartman did, he would be all over it. Yeah,
It's a prairie South Park.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Fucking love KFC so.
yeah. I had it for
The crack
supper.
they
This
put in
episode brought to you by KFC. Thanks, Lisa.
and Fitbit at the same time somehow.
no. Just no.
They feed each other. You eat the KFC, then you use the Fitbit.
Do we have to pick one? Is this an exclusive thing?
We have to pick Fitbit if we're picking one. KFC is off the table.
That's because it's in my belly.
I guess that's creator caveat there, right?
KFC.
Sorry, serious.
Anyway, that's my contribution.
Fair enough. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know.
So what's his
Well,
face
kids
is
got
an
shot
asshole.
again.
What's
Again.
that? What? Sorry.
I said kids got shot again.
Yes.
Yep, it shouldn't happen.
And apparently, one of the politicians down in the U.S. Figured it's because there's too many doors
Yeah.
on
Oh
the schools.
God, get out of here!
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's too many doors for kids to get into, I guess.
Well, no.
Stupid fire regulations.
it was a- it
Fuck
was-
that shit.
That's right.
His logic was that way if you lessen the entrances and the exits, it's easier to control.
Well, most schools lock all doors except the main entrance during
Yeah.
the school day. At least that's how it is in Canada. Right?
Yep. You can't. The schools that my kids go to, you can't enter the school except through specific entrances.
Yeah.
If there's any military listeners, feel free to correct me, but I believe the term is choke point.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe controlling the entrance to a school is fine, but it seems like that's not the only problem here.
You know, these youth that are going through all this, they're going to grow up to be the people who change this, and I think like that's the unintended effect of it is that because there's all this apathy among the adult generation, I think the kids in these schools are kind of done with it.
Well, you look at the
know,
reaction of like what's her
exactly.
name, Parkland, and like
Yeah.
those kids got pretty fired up, and then they were demonized. So
Yeah, but more and more of them are going to get fired up, and then
Yeah.
they'll be the majority, so it won't matter. You know.
And I feel like the kids from the Parkland school issue was they really brought something to the forefront that people weren't actually willing to discuss. Like the adult generation was very much in favor of just brushing these things aside and saying, "Oh, this sucks," and it just doesn't seem to
Sucks
be
and
anything
happens
we
again.
can do about it.
Yeah.
I feel like they got some support. I mean, they got
yeah.
shit on a lot, but they got a lot of. I mean,
That's right.
Doesn't what's her name? Emma
Gonzalez.
Is that
Emma
does she have
Gonzalez.
more Twitter followers than the NRA does at this point?
Yeah, I
Et cetera,
think so.
et cetera?
I can see that. Yeah, she's probably better at her social media than they are too. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
When all you tweet out is guns, 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 buy guns, 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 buy guns,
Yeah.
Buy more guns?
buy more guns.
You could buy 2 for the price of 2.
So, I mean, we talked about this a little bit at supper too, was the idea that the mother of one of the victims came into the mainstream media or a few media outlets and said that her daughter had rebuffed the shooter's advances, and some people seem to think that this could be what triggered his spree, like his killing. And because he did kill
she
her.
die?
Yeah,
Oh, he killed. Oh,
yeah, he
that's
did kill her.
terrible.
So in some cases, like, it seemed like they almost were blaming this girl for not.
No.
Not cool.
So
Once again, because you don't get any from the girls, there's no excuse to get like revengeful on them.
yeah,
Well, you do like a lot of people do. You write bad poetry, sing even worse country songs.
cry in the rain.
Hey, now some of those people make careers out of that.
This is true, but they don't go shooting up the schools.
No,
It is there's something to be said about I'm by no stretch okay with bullying, but I feel like it's odd to blame the victims of a shooter for maybe not being nice enough to the person who shot them.
Yes, that's stupid. Agreed.
Yeah.
It seems to be a thing that
Problem
has
solved.
gone on. Yeah.
But I don't know.
The end.
There's something about it. Like I was reading where and once again, this might be hyperbole and everything else because this is just kind of happened. But one of the things he apparently popped his head into one of the classrooms and surprise motherfuckers and started shooting. That doesn't really sound like a revenge thing. That just sounds like a
I'm going to be famous.
Little bit. Yeah.
yeah. It's kind of screams a little bit more like fuck it. Yeah, I'm going to be infamous. Like
There is an element to that celebrity culture for sure.
Yeah.
Like I remember when Columbine happened, like Manson wrote that song, The Nobodies.
yeah.
And it was kind of about the idea like we're the nobodies and we want to be somebody. When we're dead, you'll know just who we are. Kind of the idea that like, yeah, if we do this big thing, everybody's going to know who we are and we're going to get lots of attention from that. And now we're popular. We're almost canonized. In some
Well, it's
ways,
that
like-
weird thing of being infamous is almost as good as being famous. And
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
kinda,
Right.
It's like you need a weird combination. Like it's not enough to just be marginalized or rejected, because lots of people are marginalized and lots of people are rejected.
Yeah.
But on top of that, you need to feel entitled to not being rejected and not being marginalized and being famous or being, that. I think that's why I don't know if you were the one who posted that today, Corey. I saw on my Facebook feed, somebody said, well, say gay people and trans people and fat people and whatever have been made fun of and mocked at
Right.
school forever, but yet it's only white guys who shoot up schools, right?
They just shoot themselves. That's the difference.
Well,
right? Like,
sometimes, yeah. And
You know what I mean? Like,
I
the
think you need
suicide
to
rate's
add
so
in
high.
that spice
Yeah.
of entitlement in order to get
Yeah.
A
It
school
certainly
shooting.
seems that
Shooting.
way. Like you need to be feeling like you deserve more than you're getting,
Yeah.
and somehow.
Yeah. It's not just that life is shitty sometimes.
Yeah.
Actually, you bring up something interesting. Is that the groups you taught that anecdote you spoke about? The prevailing culture is kind of encourages self-hate or hate of that group. So ergo, you hate yourself as much as anything else, and you kill yourself. And that's why you don't express it to other people.
Or harm yourself or feel depressed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like the suicide rates among queer, I guess queer for lack of a better term, to encompass all of it,
Right.
are really high, right? But they're not school shooting high. Like they're not going to schools and killing themselves. Like they're, the suicide rates, it's a different kind of thing, different phenomenon. So
it's a weird kind of other phenomenon where it's like, okay, these guys were mean to me, instead of, internalizing it, it's like, well, I'm going to get everybody, like.
You'll all pay.
You'll all fucking pay.
Yeah.
So kind of to tie that into, previous discussions, what do you think, like, does this tie into like the incel culture or the MRA culture and, like that guy, what's his name in Toronto who drove the truck into 10 people?
I don't know if it directly links, but I think it's an outcropping of, in a weird way, maybe because it's obviously intensified, but I think it's the fact that like the internet, like I don't want to blame it. I don't want to be one of those guys, but I think it has helped create, like they create those echo chambers and then they just bubble and bubble and bubble and bubble and bubble until it, explodes on like
some poor school.
Well, I mean, I don't think that's I don't think that was a chat group, but it definitely, I mean, the fact that he was apparently posting pictures on Instagram of his knife and his jacket with, and his Born to Kill shirt, and, he's trying to create his own online infamy before he does something. Like, I mean, it kind of feeds that instead of, they're not directly connected, I don't think, but it's the same kind of,
like he's building a character that he's playing out almost. Like
almost a digital persona, almost.
Right.
Maybe I have no idea.
We're just playing guessing games.
I'm talking out of various orifices, but
there is, if I may, like a little bit of the same root of entitlement, though, like you're talking about. That's kind of where that's where the incel thing seems to kind of swirl around as an entitlement. And a little bit of the same entitlement we were just talking about, how it seems to be an entitled group that constantly seems to be the one making these or going on these sprees.
Well, the other thing is high school in itself is its own nasty, nasty pressure cooker. And it just seems you throw all the shitheads in high school, because there's a lot of them no matter what the high school. You throw in all those weird social pressures and access to firearms, and it just,
yeah. Or trucks.
Yeah. Well, weapons of essentially.
Yeah.
Weapons
destruction.
Isn't the right term, but
yeah.
He means to do violence quickly on a large scale. Because we haven't heard about a knife spree in a while that isn't in Japan.
Right. There was the favorite one that conservatives like to post. It was like a group of people wielding machetes injured 80 people or something. Killing
I like that injured 80 people.
Yeah, like it was like 10 people wielding machetes, killed 2 and injured 80 or something.
It's like, wow.
They just walked around like 10 people on a train hacking at people. And
and 2
imagine
people died.
Imagine if they all had AR-15s. But on a slightly different vein, we haven't really discussed the intellectual dark web on this show.
I thought that was supposed to be us.
Yeah, that's right. Except for the dark web is where you find the child pornography and like sex slaves and like illegal shit.
Why did they choose that name for themselves? Actually, I think if anything, that's actually the most disturbing part of the whole thing. Like, I don't really have I think it's like, so what is it? It was Eric Weinstein who coined the term.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and he puts himself in the intellectual dark web. Okay. And he has, all his pals. And I don't think it's unfair, whether or not you think it's a good thing or not. It's definitely a movement that exists. There's definitely, there's these people who have very prominent, mostly podcasts, but other medium, and people listen to them, and it's not quite mainstream, and it's not quite left, and it's not quite right, and whatever. Whatever, fine. But intellectual dark web, yeah, that just sounds like 4chan, right? Like that's just
that's kind of what I think he's leaching off of. Not that it's that whole.
Oh, why would you go there? Why would that be your
because
the badass renegades or some shit? Choose a better name.
It's that rebellious angle, right? Like you it's at almost secret, you know,
because all the cool badass shit is leftist, and they can't be that.
They don't want to be that.
I think, at least in my opinion, it's that not as many people are as computer literate to know about the dark web idea.
I don't know
and what it
Isn't
actually
that
represents.
well known.
They know that there's this underweb.
I say
Sounds like
the youth know it
counterfeiters,
more.
and child porn. Like,
Well, that's the thing is everyone knows it exists, but you have to be able you have to know how to.
And it's not really like a web thing. It's not like a website thing. It's mostly podcasts. Like
No.
Speaking tours. And,
speaking,
sorry.
book signings and whatnot. Like, it's not an internet thing. So just maybe some of the listeners haven't heard, but there was a New York Times article a few weeks ago profiling several prominent people who are, I guess, self-identifying as part of the intellectual dark web. So it's not pejorative. It's them describing themselves.
It
as
is now.
Well, it's weird. But anyways, so it's like, I think Eric Weinstein
Your
started
edgy
it.
teen cousin is part of the intellectual dark web.
Come get your mildly insulting podcast right beside the child porn booth.
Yeah. No, who all was part of it? It was
Sam Harris,
Eric Weinstein, Jordan Peterson,
Dave Rubin.
No, that was before Jordan Peterson.
No, Peterson was in the article. Faux show. Oh yeah, he was named.
Was he?
Oh yeah.
Ben Shapiro. Was he?
Shapiro. What's his name?
I hate that guy.
Yeah,
that guy's name.
Majid
Rubin?
Nawaz.
Rubin?
Which I may not.
Majid
Dave
Nawaz.
Ruben.
Douglas Murray.
Oh yeah.
Michael
Diane
Sherman.
Hersey Ali and Christina Hoff Summers.
Oh, you're just looking it up on your giant smartphone.
Cheater! The rest of us are going off memory.
Aw.
No, good job. Anyways, so I mean, I think the article is interesting. I mean, it does point out that these people, they don't all hold the same beliefs. They're not all on the same part of the political spectrum. They don't have the same policy ideas. The thing that links them is they have a particularly large interest in free speech and in basically nothing really being off limits to talk about. I think like they're supposed to have an openness to having a conversation, like a rational conversation with anyone about anything.
Unless you're like pro-Muslim.
No, but they'll have a rational. They won't agree with them, but they'll have a conversation.
Well,
That's
some
the
of
idea.
them will.
That's the idea. Well, I mean, and it also talks about how you're never going to get everyone in a group like that to conform and have this, the
That's
same
true.
policy, the same openness and the same.
Yeah, they are. I think I got the impression that this was an exercise in self-indulgence. And look how smart this group is. And I kind of got the impression that Bari Weiss figures she's part of this group, whether she's been
The author.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she talks about it. Like, she'd be willing, but not if this is what it means. Like, at the very end, if you read to the end, I can't remember exactly what she said, but she was like, I'd almost want to be part of this, but I don't know. Like, it honestly is how it reads.
Yeah.
I think it is a legitimate, it is a movement. I think.
How do you officially join the dark?
It's loose.
Dark.
It's described that way as being loose. It's not a official thing.
So it's just like, is there like a bigot scale or something? Like,
No, it's describing.
if you've reached this level of bigotry,
Well, it's describing a movement, like I said, a movement that cannot be categorized into, say, mainstream political views or extreme left, extreme right. It's a different. I don't know, different. But I think that it is a thing because there does seem to be an appetite for it.
Well, there certainly is an
definitely.
appetite for it. Like they speak at sold out venues and they have millions of downloads on their podcasts.
Like us.
When is Peterson coming here? He's coming here, isn't he?
August
He's
14th.
coming to Saskatoon. Yeah.
No, he's
coming.
not.
He's coming here too.
Yeah, I know
is
a
he
guy
coming
who
to
has a
Regina
ticket.
too?
Yeah.
Jesus.
As far as I know.
Oh Lord.
What a waste of skin.
Like I would enjoy watching somebody debate him, maybe somebody smart debate him. But even then I wouldn't pay. Like I know, like you guys know I love Sam Harris and he's going to have a thing with him in Vancouver, I think in June. And I think it'd be interesting because I have enjoyed the interviews Harris has done with him because I'm just like, to me, it just makes Peterson look like an idiot.
Right.
Like, he's just like, you're not making sense. And then Peterson's like, blah, 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 bullshit. And then Harris like, but no, you're not. Anyways, it goes on for 4 hours like that. But then I wouldn't pay because I wouldn't want to give Peterson money.
Right.
I don't care
Well-
if part of it's going somewhere. I just couldn't.
There's going to be
couldn't give Peterson
protests.
any
Apparently there's, and I started to watch it, but I didn't finish it, but there is video of Matt Dillahunty.
Oh, yes, actually, and that's a very good discussion.
Yeah.
What did Matt Dillahunty do?
Matt Dillahunty sat down with Jordan Peterson, and they actually discussed religion and belief in God.
Oh, yeah.
Which is kind of
He's
Matt's specialty.
Yeah.
So,
Was this the LSD incident?
yes, yeah, he kind of.
What?
Well, not LSD sponsored or anything like that, but they discussed at one point. No, sorry, not LSD. Psilocybin. Magic
they
mushrooms,
kind of
including
just
smoking.
They kind of just talked about, like people who are on mushrooms or drugs have reported supernatural events.
Yeah, and they're apparently
Therefore, that is a thing that happened.
Yeah,
Because that's how Jordan Peterson thinks.
of course. Like this is the guy who believes dragons and witches exist.
Well, he said something about like everything has to come from a belief in God first or something like
Yeah,
that.
oh,
He's a Christian.
Full on presuppositionalist.
He claims to not be a Christian though. He's the same sort of. I think that puts him in the same sort of cultural Christian subset as Sam Harris.
It's actually
No.
really, in a sense, it's interesting to hear
I heard
him
him
talk.
interviewed.
Because when he was asked if dragons really exist, he believes that dragons exist in a way because conceptual things exist, like ideas exist. So he thinks that therefore dragons are real in the sense that ideas
he
are
doesn't believe in
real.
truth. And it's really like it's just
So basically,
mind-boggling.
go through a 5-minute explanation to create the equivalency of a dragon to a concept, and ergo it exists.
The interesting thing
I'm going to
is-
shorthand it as dragons exist, and I want you to know that that's what I actually mean.
So he basically just argued for multiple genders.
Well, yeah, that's right.
Oh, he
because-
does. He knows that transgender people exist and all that. He just doesn't want to respect them.
Yeah, essentially.
Well, he knows they exist, but he doesn't think that they're actually women.
Right.
Like if you're a transgender woman, you're not actually a woman.
And I mean, I've absorbed as much Peterson as one can absorb without going insane.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. But
Should we try, Corey?
he has this kind of idea of concepts as reality,
Yeah.
and he translates that, like, it's very much what he imagines postmodernism is, where everybody makes up reality through their ideas and their truth. That's what he thinks actually happens. But then he attacks postmodernism as that thing
Yeah.
because he didn't come up with it, even though that's not what postmodernism is. And
Oh yeah, this is exactly the same sort of problem he has with a lot of fields that he isn't actually educated in. I have this idea and I think it's wrong. I didn't actually research this, but this is what I think it is, and ergo I think it's wrong.
yep. It's just, he's an interesting character. Like if he wasn't real, that would be somebody I could watch on a cartoon or something.
He's like House.
Right.
But not
He's like
smart.
House, but not smart. Yeah.
Or knowledgeable.
No, he has a field. He just has to stick with that field. Like as far as I can tell, if within his field he's actually accomplished, but that's not where most of this is happening.
The interesting thing is, like, he is accomplished in his field, but not for the last while,
Yeah.
because he's been so focused on teaching and his clinical work, and then of course in 2016 he went, I don't know, viral, I guess you could say.
Yeah, you know, one of my friends actually has his book, his psychology book.
Okay,
Maps
Maps
of
of Meaning.
He says it's actually really good. Like he said, like as a clinical psychologist, he's really good.
I think that he might be onto something with some of his personality types.
Yeah.
I think that often people like he uses a lot of Jungian type language and ideas.
Apparently, that personality typing thing.
A lot of it's
Well, he brought this up as a means to hire for certain fields, but it's essentially the only people he's tested it against are his own grad students that none of them could fake it. So he didn't do any like double blind testing.
well, no. And according to an article in the Star that recently
you saw
came
that
out, he was turned down for grants, and then blamed that on leftist bias in academia.
Well, so I think you're thinking of this article by Bernard Schiff,
right?
Who's now retired, but was a professor in the psychology department at U of T, and apparently, campaigned to have Peterson hired in the late 90s. He was the one who told the hiring committee, no, we should totally go for this guy. And now the article is fascinating because it's called, I was Jordan Peterson's strongest supporter. Now I think he's dangerous. So actually, honestly, I think that title is sort of that headline is sort of, I don't know, inflammatory, but it's great articles. It's quite long. But he talks about how, Peterson wouldn't submit to ethics board approval, which is basic in a study involving humans, and he just wouldn't do it. And he was like, I shouldn't have to. I know if my stuff is ethical more than you could ever know. And it's like, this is literally the law. You can't just be like, I'm not doing that. It's not a thing.
I read that and I felt like the subtext of the article in the lowbrow version is like, fuck. He was okay.
I really do get the idea that he is, whether he means to or not, has the mentality of a cult leader.
And he's a narcissist. He really he's so into himself. He
thinks he has the exact interpretation.
And he's also, he's so hard done by. So I read the blog post that he wrote because he'd said, in a New York Times interview, he'd said something about how, one thing that would prevent incels from existing would be enforced monogamy. Right. And so he wrote a blog post clarifying it. So he says that what he actually believes in is socially enforced monogamy, meaning that society should have pressures to keep relationships monogamous.
Like they do now?
Yeah, which is the society. I know, but he believes that he wants he's kind of like a return to 1950s sort of, not Mad Men, that's 1960s, but
no, that's too sexually open.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, but he really wants or anyway, he's advocating for this as a, and the thing is, he plays games, and this article in the Star really points this out. He splices words, and he says one thing, and doesn't, and he passes off things that are conjecture as truth.
Right.
For example, in that blog post, he cites articles, looked at them. None of them have been published in the last 15, 20 years. So they're old. So because he has an excerpt from them, I'm like, why are all these citations from the 80s? Because, and the thing is, the things he uses as citation, it's just at one point it said, I don't know, men murder other men as, because they're in competition for women. And biologically, evolutionarily, they were. Okay, but then it said but the explanation of why men only rape women and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that doesn't even that's not even true. This is demonstrably false things. This is a paper that he's citing. It's not things he actually wrote. Anyways, so he clarified that he didn't mean that there should be government enforced monogamy, which is kind of how that sounds in a way. So okay, we got to give him that because he was very clear on that. And he also specifically said things like, it doesn't mean that there should be, that men should feel entitled to sex, or that there should be enforced monogamy. I'm just saying it's an effective tool. He always does that shit. He's like that annoying guy in undergrad. He's always like, well, you didn't specify that when you said blue, you really meant this kind of wavelength and not that one. Fuck off.
Depends on what your definition
Do you know what I mean, though? Yes, he's that guy. He's that guy.
Yeah.
Because you might misinterpret me.
The interesting thing is,
but he feels so hard done by everyone's misinterpreting my words on purpose. What
you could be more distinct.
You are smart enough to know that what you're saying is going. If you want to say something like that, you got to be really clear. And fine, I'll let you clarify. Yeah. But I still find your argument tenuous at best.
Yeah, I find even the clarified argument weak.
Yes, agreed. So it is not as extreme as you might think by just naively hearing the straight up. But it's still
it's still an awful argument.
I still don't.
Yeah.
Just what I'm thinking is that it almost sounds like I haven't gotten into dug full in, but it almost sounds like he read one of the little tidbits of evidence that some of these guys are motivated by the incel movement and thought, how do you fix that? It's like, I know, we'll get them sex, and then cloaked it in.
He just says whatever.
Language.
He just I don't know, like the Schiff article says. He says he passes conjecture off as fact.
Yeah,
and apparently he was doing that in his lectures all the time, and it's just
it was already bothersome then.
Yeah,
I have been listening to a show called Media Indigena the last few months, and they recently had a 2-part episode where they discussed what they called settler sexuality. And the person who was discussing it her name is Kim Tallbear. And she discussed the idea like that indigenous people often didn't have the Western European settler type ideas about monogamy and even the family structures that we imagine as the norm. It weren't the way indigenous people did family, and how, to me, in much of her work and many of the things she said, kind of like, contradicts this idea that monogamy automatically is the better way to look at the world and like approach relationships and families.
But did those societies have more violence?
Well, it's hard to measure that.
I guess I'm just saying because Peterson says that we evolved in culture in societies where only a small subset of males got to reproduce, but almost all females got to reproduce, which is why men exclusively have this. This is what he says, just to be clear. Right. This is why men exclusively have more aggression than women, because women are all like, cool, I get to have a baby no matter what, but only a small subset of men do, so which makes them very competitive. Whereas monogamy would be like, oh, like I'm guaranteed it's all good. And I agree. It's an argument. I need a lot of evidence and not just a 20-year-old paper with crappy citations that are easily refuted to believe that. But, and again, it's a lot of, well, I didn't say it was a good idea to do it. I just said it could work. I just said it's effective, not that we should do it. Like, fuck off.
Well, part of my thought is that he hasn't demonstrated that it could work.
No.
Right? Like with anything other than conjecture.
Well,
which the problem is I haven't read enough. I honestly don't know enough about Jordan Peterson to really comment, but it just seems like he's seeing all this through this just tunnel vision, westernized viewpoint. And it's like, you're way out of your fucking wheelhouse here, buddy. Like, and I've heard this argument in other, only high status males get to, but if you look at enough other cultures, it's not true.
Yeah. It's just factually incorrect.
It's not true. I mean, there's, I can't remember specifically. It's in one of my anthropology textbooks, but in Tibet, there's actually one of the rare cases of, can't
matriarchal?
remember.
Is that what you're thinking?
Sort of. It's like, instead of one husband, multiple wives, flip it.
Right.
Why? Because it's a case of being that high up in the mountain range. It's a case of.
Yeah, I've read the same thing.
It was just a simple case of, it was numbers. There was more
men than women.
More men than women. So it became a case of, it was like, reverse patriarchy.
Right.
And, they made it work.
Right.
Heaven forbid.
And the thing is there's other things saying how and why our concept of marriage has evolved. And for the most part, it was about, mostly about lineage and property.
Yeah. Wasn't it like marrying your daughter off often transferred your property to, or transferred her husband's property to your family, or something like that?
It kind of depends, because there's different things. There's and it's been so long since I've read it. I'm kind of
wasn't that the goats and the cow thing?
Well, there's
the dowry.
Well, there's
Right.
dowry, and then
Somewhat,
there's
yeah.
dowry, and there's bride wealth. But that's getting more off into the weeds. But like, it's just a case of when you get married and it's just one-on-one. There's a direct line of succession. Like, okay, I am married to you. These children are definitely mine. They get my property when I die. And, there's no question. In theory, there shouldn't be any fighting, but
What's that about
European history tells you that's not true. But, that's the basic principle of how our concept of marriage kind of evolved. I mean, I've also heard other things where it's like, when you get married, you create a workforce because now your spouse's family is now not necessarily indebted to you, but you now have a workforce that both sides of the family can now, harvest the fields and vice versa. Like there's all these additional things that get thrown into the mix. And that's a very westernized version, I think, of why. Like, it's not.
It's not. So ultimately, like the claim that monogamy as we have it in our culture reduces male violence is not a one-to-one conversion by any stretch.
So. No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Like, even if it were a true thing, and I'm not convinced it is in any sense, it certainly isn't as straightforward as it seems to have been implied.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing is I think a lot of it depends on culture to culture to culture and history to history. Like, just this whitewashing is, I think, just lazy and not really understanding.
That was often that was kind of my comment in a lot of Twitter conversations was like, I think Jordan Peterson's Western settler bias is demonstrating a lot of his viewpoints here. Like, he's really very one-sided and doesn't recognize much from other.
He's just got it.
Yeah. He doesn't really recognize other cultures that did things differently.
Because he's not an anthropologist. He's not a sociologist.
One of the things, like, he was interviewed by, and we'll stop talking about Jordan Peterson soon.
It's so hard.
One of the things that he said, like, he was being interviewed on stage by Dave Rubin about the enforced monogamy statement. And one of the things that he said, like, he scoffs and says, like, well, it's certainly not this ridiculous thing that all the leftists think that I meant, as though he used a term that was clear to everybody. And that everybody should know what he meant. And we're just taking him out of context on purpose.
Oh, yeah.
Except the thing he said is this kind of obscure anthropological reference.
Technical, academic term. Like,
nobody's going to just automatically know that.
Do you know what the medical term for miscarriage is? Spontaneous abortion. And yet you don't go to your doctor and say, oh, you've had a spontaneous abortion. Nobody said, people don't use those words to lay people because it's obviously going to be misunderstood.
It was spontaneous.
That's right.
But that's actually what it's called. I'm just saying, like, as an example.
Don't use technical jargon.
If you go to the doctor, doctor's not going to say that to you because it's going to upset you.
Do you also get those in Vegas?
What?
Spontaneous abortions. Like, same, is it across the street?
Quickie
from the
wedding,
Whitechapel?
spontaneous abortion.
Yeah. See? No?
A miscarriage is when is not an intentional caused thing. It's your body rejecting an embryo or a fetus. Yeah.
Yes, it's very much.
No.
So the answer
sure, it
is
happens
no.
in Las Vegas, but I'm sure it happens everywhere else too.
Yeah.
So I think I'm about played out on Jordan Peterson today.
Well, so I will say though he's playing Connexus here in town actually, which
I just Googled it,
which is a large venue.
I'm so glad you're promoting this, Dave.
I'm just saying I'm surprised how large of a venue he's getting.
But there's a really big.
It'll fill it.
It will fill it.
So we should be going there just to identify all the people that we don't want to associate with.
Yeah, that's about it.
I'm pretty much a social recluse as is.
Yeah, I guess so.
So just adding to the list. That's like double checking, making sure they're there.
People have a right to say whatever, I guess.
How many women and people of color do you think will go to this?
Oh, not very many.
No.
There'll be some women. No, you know what? There are a lot of really conservative, like Christian women in
That's
town.
true. That's
There's quite
true.
a few. Yeah.
And he does talk bad about, well, he does refuse to use trans people's pronouns. So
Yeah.
that would appeal to that base.
It would. Yeah.
And just a little bit of spitefulness. I've heard some online articles stopped referring to him with gendered pronouns.
Oh, is that right?
Yep, just their article, their history, not his or.
I want to acknowledge that Mike, a former crew member of the show, Mike had a great point that we should start maybe not talking about Jordan Peterson and more or less just taking his ideas, pointing out why this idea as being spread is wrong without actually referencing this person who's spreading it.
That's not a bad idea.
I think it speaks to, we had the talking about people kind of conversation. And there is something to the idea that you can take an idea, something somebody says, and just say, here's this idea that was said,
Yeah.
and this is why it's wrong.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
He
other
who shall
than
not be named.
He who shall not be named. That's
I don't
right.
know. I something rubs me the
problem
wrong
is
way about
he's-
that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
I mean, I don't know if it's a proper argument, but the thing is Lord Voldemort has been,
You said the name.
he's, been elevated to
Yeah.
some sort of
Like pseudo celebrity status
pseudo
almost.
celebrity. So it's almost already gone beyond attacking his ideas. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
Because like that's just it. Is everyone's lining up for a photo op, and he like reading that one article is talking about his new almost costume he wears when he
I hate how good his suits are.
yeah he comes
I fucking
these-
hate that.
these
I love
tailored.
a nice suit. I don't wear them, but I love the look of a nice suit, and that man makes me mad.
Okay, you're
He's
getting. You
impeccably-
need to stop worrying about Jordan Peterson and maybe just thinking about ideas here. I don't like being
Yeah, this
told
is
what
for
I can and
you,
can't
yeah,
say,
yeah.
but I mean, you need to. That's
the
not
man-
his big
I
problem.
don't
That's
like
not the
that
big
he
problem.
he wears a nice suit and he wrecks it.
He's an asshole, but he's impeccably dressed.
He is. Those are nice
Well,
fucking
hey,
suits.
that Yanni guy looked really good. And he's
Just think for a second, though.
spouting garbage. But
When you talk about bad people in nice suits and how often when the devil is portrayed in a suit.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, all
And
politicians
then
wear
you have
suits.
Trump, who has
All
wears just a
politicians wear
shitty suit too.
Which
I'm sure
I
he thinks he looks amazing.
Oh,
I hate the fact that all politicians have to dress like that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
it's just stupid. But anyway,
I
that's,
agree.
that's another topic.
I hate uniforms.
Yeah, like there's too much of it.
Yeah,
Let's face facts. Everything has its own form
well,
of
that's the
uniform.
problem.
To a point,
I
yeah.
think that's the problem. I hate uniforms.
There's uniforms. There's
gotta-
uniforms. Metalheads have uniforms.
Put on my monkey
Yeah, they
suit at
do.
work and
But isn't like jeans and a t-shirt a uniform that implies this is I'm not working right now and I'm relaxed right now. And this is it's signaling to other
Apparently-
primates exactly what's going on with you
apparently
today.
it implies that I am a farmer that is just
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, your uniform is confusing.
No, but I do think that like
Corey's confusing. He's an intellectual redneck.
sorry to bring up
This guy discusses like all these social justice warrior stuff, and then I'll have a Canadian and I'll eat a steak. And I'm going to wear my jeans and my shirt, and that's it. It's a walking contradiction.
But I think that's why that's why you get like Muslim women defending wearing hijab, right? Because that's the thing that indicates to the rest of the world, this is what I am. I believe in this. Like somebody wearing
Right.
a cross necklace
So-
or whatever. You're signaling to others your culture,
virtue
your belief.
signaling.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's fine, but I think in a situation with politicians, it's a little different because it's like an expectation of a job that really doesn't need to be there. Like it doesn't have any real value besides showing some kind of social dominance or like social put togetherness.
Remember, we're
or
social
something.
animals, man.
But that's what I mean. Like if I show up and I can do the job in any outfit, like I should be allowed to. Is what
that
I'm
should
saying.
be true of any job.
Could you
then.
see Barack
Sure,
Obama
sure.
giving a speech in a Tupac t-shirt?
I'd love it.
that would
I
be
would laugh my
fantastic.
I'd
ass
be all
off.
over it. I'd be all
I
over
would
it.
laugh my ass off. But you know what I'm saying.
It's almost like you don't take them seriously because they're all wearing suits. Like, you know what I mean? Like if they had some individuality about them, and maybe I would actually like
means something.
Means something, you know? Yeah. But anyway.
But he wore a blue tie versus a red tie. So.
That's Trump's tie's really long, so that makes it different.
All right. Has anybody got any final points? We kind of strayed right from the dark web right into Jordan Peterson. Like, we didn't spend hardly any time on the dark web at all.
He'd even be beating Ben Shapiro these days in significance. So
the dark web is too varied a set of individuals. Like, I mean, the thing that's linking them together, that tenuousness, is just their lack of mainstream, I think.
I don't even know about that.
No, but they have big followings, but they're not mainstream. They're not on TV. They're not
just under the mainstream.
I mean, they could, because they have that kind of audience.
Yeah.
But they're, you know, like, my mom's never heard of Joe Rogan, but she's heard of whatever, some newscaster on NBC who has exactly as many viewers as Joe Rogan, right? Like, that's what this is. It's just this weird sort of blind spot in the media for this group of people.
As much as, like, Sam Harris is like almost a household name among atheists.
Yeah.
That's where it ends.
that's where it ends. Yeah.
Like, the real world doesn't really know who he is.
No, but he can sell out theaters across the continent and across the world.
If there's anything that seems to tie them together, it's the idea that they're saying the thing that is perceived as unpopular.
Well, they're not afraid to say, or whatever. They're willing to say something even if it costs them a reputation or whatever. You know, like, even it has a social cost to it.
Because
which interestingly enough doesn't cost them anything socially.
It costs certain things, but it gains them other things, right?
I think I agree with that.
There's a give and take.
like,
Yeah. No, that's fair.
like, for example, Anne Hirsi Ali is very anti-Muslim as far as I understand her viewpoint.
She's quite conservative in a number of ways.
Yeah. So
she grew up in a Muslim country and had her clitoris cut off.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's anti-Muslim.
Yeah.
She's an atheist.
But
all of us don't agree with being a Muslim. We're all atheists. What? Yeah. I really love that woman. I don't want to get into this.
Yeah, but she's went right off from like Muslim to atheist to lock them all out kind of viewpoint.
Yeah.
We can put a pin in that for another day.
There's a number of things about Ayaan Hirsi Ali or Majid Nawaz or Ben Shapiro. The thing that I find really locks them all together is that they are very anti-left, despite some of them identifying as kind of left. They all
they usually identify themselves as classical liberals.
Yeah, they spend an inordinate amount of time attacking the left. When, I mean, honestly, the left is right now just pissing in the wind quite often because there's no power on the left.
Well, I think that's, you know, that's also a topic for another day. I think that's the problem, is because the left has been, you know, there's, you know, the whole pejorative of social justice warrior, and there's some whack jobs in that category. And I think, and that's the problem, is that they're a smaller percentage, but they're seen as the bigger percentage. No one wants to be associated with those fucking...
the loudest voices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where it is they don't want to be with those crazies. We're the classical liberals. We're, you know, the far left and the far right, and, you know.
Right. Yeah. And we're the rational centrists.
Yeah.
Who have no tribe and have no biases.
Yeah. we're intellectually pure.
Which is now the title of this segment.
Anyways, characterization. But anyways. Whatever. I don't think that's fair. No.
I think we touched a nerve.
Well, anyway, whatever. It's fine.
Okay. And with that, I think we'll close this session of the Rec Table. I will try to post any and all relevant links to our discussion in the show notes.
Is there anything relevant in that?
No, not really.
No.
For everything else, you can check out the show notes at thebrainstormpodcast.com and our website, brainstormblog.net. Thanks to our financial supporters, Stephanie, Zach, the Utah Outcasts, Bassett, Will, Aaron, Daryl, Destin Sucks, Bob Glenn, Dustin Doesn't Suck That Much, Magnus, several species of small furry animals gathered together in a cave, Positively Skeptical, Rob, Julie, Chris, and Larry. If you want to join them and help the show grow, then you can do that at patreon.com/brainstormpodcast. Or you can buy our stuff at tpublic.com/stores/brainstorm-podcast-gear. You can join us every second week when we broadcast live on brainstormradio.net. Our next show is on June 8th, and our guest will be Mandisa Thomas, founder and president of Black Nonbelievers. Thanks again to Bob for joining us, though he's not likely ever going to hear this. You can find his stuff at Link to be Determined.
He's on Twitter.
He's on the Twitter. Look for Bob Nygaard.
If you Google him, he's everywhere.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
I actually did Google him while we were talking.
He has a lot of places where you can find him. Thanks to Dave for our intro music. Thanks to Aaron Rabbi from the Embrace the Void podcast for doing the new voiceover. You can find his stuff at voidpod.com. Thanks to Alex Capper-Murdoch for doing the voiceover for our ads, and thanks to Jason Camo for our outro music. You can find his stuff at aloststateofmind.com. All music played is either with permission or under the SOCAN license to play. For more information on SOCAN, you can check out the music license info page on our website, brainstormblog.net. Remember to give us a rating, a thumbs up, or a fave on your podcatcher of choice. Join our Facebook group, like our page, follow us on Twitter, share the show, and spread the word. For live listeners, stick around for the after show. You can go to brainstormafterhours.com and listen to the bonus content before it goes patron only. Thanks for listening, and remember, the truth matters.
This is an opinion-based podcast. Each person on the podcast is responsible for their own opinions, and those opinions don't necessarily reflect the views of the rest of the panel. Any guests or anyone associated with the people on the podcast, such as spouses, partners, children, other family members, friends, or employers. No one person speaks for the podcast with the possible exception of Corey, and he doesn't speak for anyone else on the show. The Brainstorm podcast does not represent the views of our sponsors.
We just wanted to say thanks to everyone who listens to us, shares the show, gives us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or supports us through Patreon and Gumroad. We don't have a lot of interactions with our listeners, but what we have had proves that we attract some of the best people around. Smart, kind, and cool. An audience truly worthy of the titles hardcore and woo-free. Thanks for helping us make the world a smarter place.